Hello, everyone. Welcome to TrinSoft's introductory series for Microsoft Dynamics Business Central. Today, we're going to talk about how to access your Business Central environment, and we're also going to review some of the basic settings that a user can configure that will help them change between companies, change or select different role centers, manage the current work date, as well as a few tips and tricks. First up, here you can see Dynamics Business Central. This is what the main interface looks like. Business Central is a web-based product. It's hosted, so it can be accessed with any browser. We recommend Google Chrome or Microsoft Edge. So to access your solution, simply fire up your browser and then type in the URL, right? Or better yet, copy and paste it or use the link that your administrator sent you. Here's the link I have saved. Simply click the link, and as you can see, it will launch the environment. As I'm first logging in, Cronus is a sample company that you should have access to. It has sample data, and it's a great place to learn and click and learn a little bit about the features and the modules that Dynamics Business Central has to offer. Because it's a learning module and a learning company, here you can see that it does prompt you for some things you can learn and some things you can try out, including going to the Microsoft Learn Center. We'll talk more about that later. I'm going to go ahead and close that for now, and you can kind of see what the role-tailored interface looks like for Business Central. Once you have this URL and you have it up and running, simply go up to your favorites link up there and save it to your favorites, and that's what will save it on your browser. As you can see here, it's created a button, or I can access it from my favorite links here. Just like any website that you frequently visit, Business Central will be saved there, and you just launch your browser and go to that site, and you'll be up and running. There's one other way to access your environment I'll share with you. If you're logged into your Microsoft account, you also should have an applications link in the top left. Looks like all these little dots up here. If you have a Business Central license, as you can see, Business Central will be one of the applications available to you. Simply click that link, and it will show you which tenants, which environments you have access to. I'm going to change into a sandbox environment, which is one that we use for learning, testing, and development. And there you go. I'm back into Cronus, and I have my environment up and running. Now, as you can see, another little trick, I can have 3 instances of my environment running at the same time. They're each their own tab in the browser. You can launch as many of these as you need, and it's a nice little tip and trick for you to be able to move and keep multiple screens open at the same time. You can actually do that in separate tabs or even in individual browsers. Now to the settings area. If you look over on the right side, I'm going to look at 2 areas on the bar here. Of course, I can see my account, who I'm logged in. I have a help icon as well, a search icon, environment, settings, as well as Copilot. Microsoft Copilot is a built-in AI tool that's available to all users. And I also have my little notifications window as I'm prompted to remember to send emails or to look or run reports, right? Those will appear here as well. Today, we're going to concentrate on the settings area, which is the little gear icon. If I click that gear icon, I can see a couple of things we'll point out. First and biggest is going to be My Settings. Click on My Settings, and we bring up this window. From here, I want to point out 3 or 4 common tasks that almost all users work with or need to be familiar with to leverage Business Central. First up is the role. And again, the role determines that interface that you see when you first log into the system. If I hit the little ellipse next to it, I can see all of the role centers that are available to me. You will see all of the role centers available to you. And the number that you see will depend on your role and your security and permissions setup. If you don't see a role center that you would like to, be sure to talk to your administrator about that. If I choose a different role center, each of these is configured to have different links and menu items that are specific to that role. Here we can see a sales and relationship manager role or a sales order role. That means the sales order role will have more navigation related to sales than other functional areas. I simply choose that role, say OK. My screen will now refresh, and I'm now presented with Business Central and the sales role. Notice that my sales role center has primarily sales links and options to it, right? I can see all of the actions. These action area is where you're going to interact with most of the screens ideally on a day-to-day basis based on your role and your responsibilities with Business Central. In this particular case, if I primarily entered sales orders or invoices or quotes, this role center would be ideal. Maybe you cross functional areas and work in payables a little bit, customers a little bit, as well as general ledger. Well, for that, we can go back to my settings. We can choose role center. We'll choose the business manager role center, say OK again to refresh our screen. And we'll notice that the actions area and the role links provided cross different functional areas. Notice now that my actions have purchases and sales. My queues down here at the bottom show purchases and sales and payments, as well as the other approvals, e-documents, other functional areas, even intercompany, again, based on your permission and setup. So the role center is really a key foundation to try to provide navigation that you use most commonly, most frequently, and put it at your fingertips quickly and easily. We have a whole other video on role centers and how to configure them and tailor them. Even once you pick one, you can go in and configure some of the settings in there. Check out that video for more information about your role center. If we go back to my settings, beyond role center, I can also change companies here. So if you manage multiple companies with Business Central, an easy way to change them is go into my settings, and then I can simply change what company we're operating in. I pick the company, I say OK. The system refreshes the screen, and notice the company name is visible up here in the top left, right? Top left. That shows us what company we're in. Managing multiple companies can be challenging, and users who do this on a day-to-day basis know that it can be confusing to remember which company you're in. Business Central has functionality that will enable you to put colors and tags and little indicators, icons right up here in this environment area based on the company. That's done through company information. And I'll show you what that looks like. If we switch over to another company called TrinSoft and say OK, and we look up in this environment area in the top right, notice that we have a green little icon that says TrinSoft, or starts to say it there. Well, that's a visual indicator that was set up for that company, specifically designed to alert users and help them be aware of which company they're in. Those indicators can be configured in company information. And if you simply search and use your search bar, we've got a whole other video series on how to search and how to find things in Business Central. Be sure to check that out. But I can simply go to company information. And from that screen right there, we can set the little indicators that will help us see what company we're in. Okay, back into my settings. The next thing we'll look at, I'm going to switch back into our Cronus company. And the next thing we'll look at is the work date. Now, what the work date will do, it will default your posting date for current transactions. So it kind of saves you a little bit of time. Maybe it's the 5th of October and you want to get the rest of your work done for the end of September. I'll simply set the work date to the end of September. And then if I'm to it's changing companies because I changed back to Cronus there. If I go back into my general ledger now and pick one of my journals, go into my daily journal here, right? What we should see each time if I reset them. Let's check our work date. I don't think our reset worked here. It didn't, see? Because it changed companies, our work date went back to the training work date of 7/19. Remember, Cronus is a training company. So I'll change that to today. Again, a little tip there, right? T, if I hit T in any date field, it will insert automatically today. If I hit W in any date field, it will automatically default to the current work date. So I'm going to set my work date to today and then relaunch my journal. I'll probably have to reset that line as well. So we'll delete that one and give it a fresh one. And notice that now every journal number that goes forward defaults to the work date. If I wanted to set that back to the last day of last month, I'd go to my settings. Again, shortcut for how to enter dates. I don't have to enter slashes, right? I can just type 9/30 and it defaults to the end of September. I say, okay, go back into my daily journal now and notice that all of my dates are defaulting to the end of September. So the work date is a little trick there to help you quickly and easily default your posting dates to a date that makes sense to you. Now, if this transaction happens to be for today, I can use that other shortcut I taught you. Just hit T, and I don't have to type in the full date. Remember, T will always default to today, and W will always default to the workdate, just like that. Okay, back to my settings. Let's go back to our role center, which we can navigate to. You can always get to your role center by clicking the company. Notice that that company is a link there. So if I click on that, it will always bring me back to this role center page. If we go back into my settings, we've covered the role, the company, the work date. Notice that you do have the ability to turn on some of these toggles for the action bar and teaching tips. There are things that you can experiment with a little bit. The legacy action bar puts a couple of other actions up here at the top that might make navigation a little more familiar for those of you that used previous versions of Dynamics. And then the last thing I'll talk about are notifications. This is an area that we get a lot of questions about from users. There are a lot of notifications in Dynamics Business Central. You might be on a sales order or on a purchase invoice, and when you go to leave the screen, you'll see a warning, a little message will pop up, and it will say, hey, you have not posted this invoice. Are you sure you want to exit? Once you post an invoice or an order, it will say, you've posted this order. Would you like to view the posted document? And you have to click no. If you like those warnings, of course, they're there, and they are typically on by default. We have a lot of users who ask a lot of questions about it and want those turned off. You can do it yourself. It's here in my settings, in notifications. Look at all the notifications that are available. Here's an example of one of the common ones, warn about unposted documents. If that is checked every time you're working on an invoice and you leave it without posting, it's going to warn you. So you can come out to notifications and simply uncheck the checkbox and say close. These settings that we're reviewing today, they're all user specific. So changes and settings that you make in this area as a user are specific to you, not your company, and don't impact other users of Business Central in your company. So you can change these notifications, you can turn these toggles on or off as much as you want. It's not going to impact anybody else. I encourage you to take a look at that My Settings area. Launch your environment for Business Central. Be sure you can get in there and experiment a little bit with changing companies. That's your first introduction to Business Central. Be sure to check out our other videos to learn other basic features, useful hints, tips, and tricks for how to maximize Microsoft Dynamics Business Central for your environment. Thanks for watching.